This Torah class is brought to you by TorahAnytime.com.
Shalom Aleichem. Good morning. Welcome to our viewers on Torah Anytime as well. I want to dedicate this year for the Hatzlacha of Ben Zion Ben Dosa, him and his family. About 6 years ago, I was zoichet to put out a sefer called Shulchan Aruch Larav. Shulchan Aruch Larav has very unique halachos and hanhagos applicable to Talmid Chochem and Arav, stemming from their status or position in Dalet Chelkei Shulchan Aruch. There's hundreds and hundreds of halachos that pertain to Arav or Talmid Chochem just because of who he is or who we view him to be. So this is 6 years ago or so, as Dalet Chelkei Shulchan Aruch and Shalos Tshuvos for Rabbonim, Rashi Yeshivas, Dayanim, Talmidei Chachamim, Rebbes, and I thought I covered the whole subject. It's a big sefer. But, Baruch Hashem, B'chazdei Hashem, last 5 years, been writing Chelek Beis. Chelek Beis just came out this week. So I'm zeichet to say Shechianu and to thank Ribbon Shel Olam. V'kahal Am Ve'eda, new material, same way that Chelek Aleph is built, but more halachos within the 4 parts of Shulchan Aruch. I really wrote the sefer for the Mara De'asra, Baruch Hashem, that we have here. It's all about, it doesn't have his picture inside, but should be the toilet. Shalos Tshuvos for Rabbanim, Talmidei Chachamim, and this sefer covers a lot of different topics. How a Talmid Chochem or Rav should act, how should he walk, how should he dress, how should he eat. There's so many different things, every step of the way, all day long, every single day. So Mitzvah Hashem should be the toilet to all those who want to be mechabed their Rabbanim, who are Talmidei Chachamim themselves, or aspire for Chochmah and for wisdom, because at the end there's a section of Divrei Agada about the praise of Chochmah, Talmidei Chachamim. So hopefully it will propel people to action, to try and gain wisdom and to become Talmidei Chachamim. While we're on the subject of Sfarim, 8 years ago, Zoichet to put out a sefer called Megillas Esther, with the whole story of Purim with Mida Keneged Mida interpretation. It came out in Hebrew and it came out in English. The sefer has 2 parts. The Megillah with Mida Keneged Mida, and 350 different interpretations of what? One line in the Gemara, Megillah Daf Zayin Amud Beis, Mechayev inish levesum bepuraya ad lo yada. What does it really mean? We really have to drink to the point that we can't distinguish between Aru Haman, Baruch Mordechai. We have to lose our brains and potentially forget about Birkas Hamazon, Deoraisa, Ma'ariv, Shema Yisrael, Deoraisa. Very strange. So again, I thought I covered the subject, 350 different interpretations. But, B'chazdei Hashem, last 8 years since this came out, another 200 different interpretations of what it really means. So altogether we have 550 different understandings in one little line in the Gemara. And more Mida Keneged Mida that didn't appear in Chelek Beis. So Chelek Beis is now in the making, very close to be to end Yissachar in Hebrew and English, 2 volumes. Whoever wants to participate, Tavo Alav Habracha, it'll be a great help. Just want to thank all those who were involved in producing the Shulchan Aruch Larav Chelek Beis. It's a very big expense. It's a big project, as you can see the sefer, and all those who helped, Mitzvah Hashem HaKadosh Baruch Hu will help them and will share with them, with chesed, with rachamim, with abundance in both ruchnius and in gashmius, apparent siyata dishma in everything they do. Now, we're finally back to Parashas Vayechi. Vayikevu Yimei Yisrael Lamus. Yaakov Avinu is dying, so he calls his son Yosef and he says to him, "Please, v'asisa imi chesed ve'emes. Do me a favor. I'd like you not to bury me in Mitzrayim. V'shachavti ma'avoisai u'nesasani mi Mitzrayim. Take me out of here. Ukvartani b'kvurosam. I want you to bury me in Eretz Yisrael." And Yosef responds and says, "Vayomer Anoichi e'ese dvarecha." Does that what it say in the Torah? Kidvarecha. It doesn't say dvarecha. First of all, it's a superfluous kaf. You can say Anoichi e'ese dvarecha. I'll do exactly as you said, Abba. So first of all, you're throwing in a letter, and ink is kind of expensive these days, so why put another letter? And kaf is kaf adimyon. So I'm not really going to do what you asked me. Oh, I'll try to get close. Why can't you say and promise your father, I'll do exactly as you said? Anoichi e'ese dvarecha. What did you lose? If you would say dvarecha without the ki dvarecha. Sort of. Oh, I'll try to get close to what you're saying. Perhaps you see from here the humility of Yosef. Yosef HaTzadik doesn't think for a second that he will be able to do exactly as Yaakov Avinu wanted him to do. So out of his anava, he says, Anoichi, I will try my best, but I'll probably only be able to do kidverecha, close to what you want me to do? And even if I'll actually do the exact things that you said, mistama, I won't reach all the kavanos and the tikkunim and the yichudim, and therefore it's kafadimion, because I'll try to do my best to do what you said, but it could be that I won't reach all the kavanos that you had in mind, and therefore it's ki dvarecha. The Chizkuni comments on this pasuk and says, Anoichi e'eseh ki dvarecha, missing a yud. The word ki dvarecha, missing a yud. So perhaps he doesn't explain why it's missing a yud, but perhaps for the same reason. Because he actually says, I'm going to try, but I doubt that I'll be able to have all the kavanos, tikkunim, and yichudim as my father, the tzaddik Yaakov Avinu had, and therefore it's missing yud because of the anava of Yosef. So Yaakov Avinu is sick. That gives us a chance to ask a question about a person who's sick. There's a person who's very sick, with a very severe diabetes. Doctors say if you eat this cake, your stomach will kill you. But this patient doesn't have any self-restraint, and he's seeing this slice of cake, it's calling him, has his name on it. He's going to eat it. But he has this question is, should I say a bracha? Bracha rishoina, bracha achroina. Can I say a bracha on something the doctor's saying, my stomach's going to kill you? Don't tell him not to eat because he's not listening to us. He's not there. But he's such a tzaddik. So he says, I'm already eating. Do I say a bracha, bracha rishoina, bracha achroina? What do you say, Dayani Mumchim? What do you say?
It's a brother, he's going to die?
The only sure thing in the world, in life is death and the IRS. I don't know, I'm not a Navi. The doctor's saying this is endangering his life. You're going to ruin the dynamic balance in the body, and it's a very severe form of diabetes that he has, and this is very dangerous for him.
How do we know we are not sure when someone even has a sword on the neck, he has to there is some salvation. So he should do as usual, do the Beracha Arishon, and then whatever happens, happens.
And if he survives, the Bracha Choyne also.
Of course.
It's daven for him. She'll survive. At least he said bracha choyna, and then at least he died after saying a bracha. So you're paskening, he says two brachos.
Yeah, he says
both brachos.
He's eating the food, he's getting anah. It doesn't matter. If
Lemais is enjoying himself. It is delicious, that's why he can't restrain himself.
Who said the doctors are right?
Who says doctors are right? Do you normally listen to doctors and trust him? Shulchan Aruch Orach Chaim Siman Taf Reish Yud Ches. The doctor says to you, you have to violate Yom Kippur and you have to eat. Do we listen? Well, what do you know? You're only a doctor. Do we listen to doctors? Of course we do. We violate Shabbos and we eat on Yom Kippur based on what doctors say. And there's even a doctor in the audience right here, so you have to be very careful the way you speak about doctors today.
That's only a suffix, correct?
No, he's a real doctor. Shemen anigron. Also lechem kemach seorim, barley flour that one eats. Anyone begs to differ with the opinions that we heard until now, that you have to say a bracha before and after?
If you're saying that what the doctor is saying is true and we do rely on it, so in essence, really, you should say a bracha.
No bracha? Rishoina and achroina?
Right.
Mm-hmm. When the doctor tells you to eat chazir, you say a bracha? Doctor says, this is going to save your life. Pikuach nefesh, you must eat a chazir. You do. Pikuach nefesh. But do you say a bracha?
No, it's medicine.
It's medicine?
Yes. It's
medicine without a flavor, you don't say a bracha. Medicine with a flavor, you say a bracha.
Oh, really?
Say it with a bracha.
With a bracha. You say she'akol on the chazir? Baruch ota. She'akol niya b'dvaru. You take the chazir?
It's going to save your life.
Mistama, you're saying on the ketchup, not on the chazir itself. When a person eats an isu without a doctor's permission, he eats a chazir, but he loves it. It's delicious. Does he say a bracha?
In essence, yeah, you do.
Yes or no?
You do because he's fulfilling a mitzvah. The mitzvah.
Which mitzvah?
Huh?
Which mitzvah?
Saving your life.
The mitzvah.
The guy who listens to the doctor.
Yeah.
I'm on the next stage already. The guy who doesn't listen to anyone, not to the Torah, not to the doctors. He eats chazir because it's delicious to him. Does he have to say a bracha?
He won't say a bracha, but it doesn't.
Brachos is very makpidan. Chazir, not so much. What bracha is it? It's a curse. HaKadosh Baruch Hu, thank you so much for allowing me to... I didn't allow you to eat this, HaKadosh Baruch Hu says. Ein ze mevarech ela menayetz. He's cursing HaKadosh Baruch Hu. Paskin halacha Shulchan Aruch Orach Chaim Siman Kuf Tzadi Vav Seif Aleph, one who eats dvar isur, even an isur derabanan, en mezamnim alav, he doesn't count for a zimun, and he doesn't say a bracha not before and not after. How can you say thank you to Rabban Shleilim for the food that the Kadosh Baruch Hu said to you, stay away from it?
Also to go nefesh?
But, Seif Beis, Kuf Tzadivav, right there, Seif Beis, if he eats for Pikuach Nefesh, because doctor told him to eat this, I don't care what it is, shellfish and chazir mixed together, he will say, Abracha Rishonah, Bracha Achronah. Mishnah Berurah explains, because now he's doing a mitzvah. It's the same HaKadosh Baruch Hu told him, Ushmartem es me'oidus nazar sheisem. You should watch yourselves exceedingly, and therefore you have to eat this. HaKadosh Baruch Hu commanded him to eat this. HaKadosh Baruch Hu commanded him to eat this, so you have to say Abracha. Rishonah Achronah. But back to our case, sort of in between. What is it? It's not a Dvar Isur, because it's not Chazir. It's all kosher ingredients. Badatz, kosher le'me'adrin. But HaKadosh Baruch Hu told you to listen to the doctors who are telling you, stay away. Where you're sort of stuck. What is Isur? Isur de Rabbanon, what is it exactly?
Sakana.
Sakana. No. So do you say a bracha or not? But you said before, say a bracha Rishon Achroina. Now Mishnah Rishon and Mishnah Achroina, Kevan Shehigid Shuv Eino Choyzer Umagid. If it was in a testament base, then we wouldn't be able to accept the second thing you're saying, but this is not. So we're able to. Abu Yisai, the Yani Mumchim, the verdict is?
Mazik.
It's mazik. Yeah. Yeah.
There's no bracha.
No bracha. No bracha Rishona and no bracha Achroina? You're going against everybody else here. Not afraid to take up and...
It's a Gemara.
Yeah, Gemara. So you have a strong coalition. You're in the Gemara against everybody else here.
There's opinions that a lot of the foods cause damage to the person's
True.
body. And you say brachot, there's no...
Immediate damage, and even those that do cause damage, they have some nutritional properties and some benefits as well. But over the long time, over long haul, it's it's going to endanger the person. But normally, a food, no matter how bad it is, doesn't kill you on the spot. This, the doctors say, this can kill you right now. It's lethal, potential. This Shaila went to Rabbi Yosef. Give all the good answer. Bracha Achroina, you don't say. Bracha Rishona, you say. Why? Bracha Rishona is even for one crumb. You have to assume one crumb is not going to kill him. All the doctors will agree. One little crumb is not going to kill him. But even for one crumb, you have to say bracha. Bracha Rishona, you have to say. Bracha Achroina, you only say when you reach a share of at least a kazais. Kazais is already dangerous. Kazais is already dangerous. You're eating something you're not allowed to eat. Dvar Isur. Dvar Isur, we said, Shulchan Aruch Chaim Kuf Tzad Divav Seif Aleph Dvar Isur. You don't say a bracha. But we have to ask on this Rabbi Yosef. From the Gemara you quoted. Brachos Daf. Lamed Vav. The Gemara says, if one eats kamcha desare, barley flour, hoil vekashe lekokiani, since it's potentially very propitious for one to acquire intestinal worms, not so fun. So the Gemara says, lo livricha le'aklon, maybe you shouldn't say any bracha. Says the Gemara, Kamash Moran, Kevan Teisle Hanamine, since Lemaise you are benefiting from it, just like you said before, one has to say a bracha. So if you have to say a bracha, you see even for things which damage you, you do say a bracha, not like what we said, and not like what Rabbi Yosef said. Well, you ate a kazait, you're not allowed to eat it, so you can't say a bracha. You have to assume that what Rashi says, it's tolaim sheba me'aim, intestinal worms, that's not endangering you. It's very uncomfortable, very unpleasant to have that in your stomach, but mistama, it's not dangerous, it's not lethal. So for something that you still have to say a bracha. But something that potentially can kill you, for that you don't say a bracha. But we should still ask from Avos de Rabbi Nassan. And that carries a lot of weight. Avos de Rabbi Nassan is one of Masechtot Ktanos in Shas. And in Perek Chavav, Mishnah Hey, it says over there, Rabbi Akiva says, listen to Amish, unbelievable. Rabbi Akiva says, if you eat food that endanger you, that potentially harm your health, you transgress 3 negative commandments. What's 3 negative commandments? First of all, you're mevaze yourself. It looks like you're a wine guzzler. Where do you get it from? Pasuk in Mishlech Av Gimel, Al tehi besov e yain. Don't be a wine guzzler. Being a gluttonous. What are you doing? Mevaze es atzmo. He's calling it a negative commandment. The second thing, you're mevaze the food. You're causing a baltashchis to the food. This is food that should not be in your body. It's baltashis to the food. And the third thing, you're saying Hashem's name in vain. It's a bracha levatala. This damages you. HaKadosh Baruch Hu didn't want you to eat it, and therefore he didn't want you to say a bracha. You say a bracha, you're mevaze the food, you're mevaze yourself, and you're saying a bracha levatala. So how come Rabbi Yosef said, say a bracha? Rabbi Akiva says no. Rabbi Yosef says, no, it's okay, you can go against Rabbi Akiva. Rabbi Akiva was probably saying, don't say a bracha on the entire food. Rabbi Elyashiv is saying, have in mind for the first crumb. For the first crumb anyways, you have to say a bracha, and it's not going to kill you. Mimele for that, you can say a bracha, and therefore everything works out, even with Rabbi Akiva.
What would you say about, suppose on Pesach, an Ashkenazi person is visiting his Sephardi friend, and he gets a great...
That's his first mistake.
He gets a great desire to eat kidneys. Would he make a bracha beforehand and afterwards?
Why is he eating kidneys on Pesach?
He feels a great desire to do it. Would he make a bracha?
I don't want to tell you what the Sha'ar Tshuva writes in Orach Chaim. Don't want to tell you, so I'm not going to tell quiet, don't listen. The Sha'ar Tshuva says, one who eats kidneys on Pesach, obviously talking about Ashkenazim, Chayav Misa. So ask him again if he's sure he wants to try that kidneys. Why is it Chayav Misa? Where does this Isur eating kidneys came from? It's a Deoraisa? No. It's a Derabanan? No. Much later. So why did the Sha'ar Tshuva say Chayav Misa? Because whenever you don't listen to the Chachamim, Chayav Misa. It's a Gemara in Eruvin Chaf Aleph. Chayav Misa. We were not going to kill him in a Beis Din, for sure. And sometimes we actually allow a person, if he's sick, to have kidneys. But you see the severity. So ask your friend again, if he let him think twice before he eats the kidneys. Not a good idea.
If because though he goes ahead, he can make the bracha.
I think he can. And achroina. It's not a complete dvarisu. It's not a dvarisu because you see your Sephardic friend sitting right next to you and eating it with heter gamo. So I don't think it's a heter. But he transgressed the minhag and it's very, very severe. Since we mentioned Yaakov Avinu, we'll mention something else related to him. Rabbi Yehuda Hanosi is called Rabbi Yehuda Hanosi. Why is he called Nasi? Because he was a Nasi. Yivaldik. Megale Amukos. Megale Amukos tells us all kinds of secrets up there in Shamayim. Megale Amukos says, Rabbi Yehuda Hanosi was a Gilgul of Yaakov Avinu. He's a reincarnation. And therefore they called him a Nasi. Nasi is Rashi Tevos. Nitzotz Shel Yaakov Avinu. Rashi Tevos, Nasi, and that's why Rabbi Yehuda Hanosi is called Nasi. So in this parsha, Yaakov Avinu gives a bracha to Menashe and Ephraim. And we use this bracha all the time. Every Friday night, people give this bracha to their children. Why Dafka Menashe and Ephraim? You should be like Menashe and Ephraim. And there aren't any other tzaddikim before that they lived that we want our kids to emulate, not taking away anything from Menashe and Ephraim. But why Dafka they should be like Menashe and Ephraim? We spoke about it in the past and we gave all kinds of different ideas. But some say, all the other brothers mentioned in the Torah before always fought with each other. Cain and Hevel, we know how that ended. Not so pretty. Yissachar and Ishmael, Yaakov and Esav, Yosef and the Shvatim. The first time we meet two brothers that don't fight, it's Menashe and Ephraim. So we say to our children, you should be like Menashe and Ephraim. And why is it so important? Because as parents, everybody knows, you can tolerate a lot of things that your kids do, but you cannot stand when you see them fighting. It just breaks your heart. What's the proof to it? Why are we here in Galus for 1956 years and change? Because we couldn't get to Achdus. HaKadosh Baruch Hu says, oh yeah? So I'm moving away. Yuma Daf Tes Amud Beis, Bayis Sheni, why was it destroyed? Because of Sinas Chinam. Machloikis, Lashon Hara. When we can't get along with each other, HaKadosh Baruch Hu says, I'm leaving. And as a parent, you see, it's so clear. You just don't want to be there. And therefore, Yaakov Avinu gives a bracha to Menashe and Ephraim, and we use that bracha because we want our children to be able to be together with each other, to have achdus, because that will translate imitz Hashem to the rebuilding of Beis Hamikdash. Vayishlach Yisrael es yamino. Yaakov Avinu puts his right hand on the head of Ephraim, and he was actually the young one, and he puts his left hand on Menashe, and he gives him a bracha. And that's what we do. We mentioned Friday night there's a minhag to bless the children. What's the reason Dafka Friday night? Wednesday it doesn't work this bracha? Tuesday morning, you get up, you feel like blessing the kids. Why was it instituted? Why is this minhag to say the bracha specifically Friday nights? It says, what's that? What about the neshama? So you have to give two brachos for the first neshama and the second neshama. Which one gives the bracha? Shalom Aleichem is a bracha to the angels. But now I have a new bracha for my children. My children are with me also on Tuesday.
When you do the other,
Two for the price of one. Package deal.
it's in the air.
You're in business? Package deal.
There's so much machlokas on Friday.
And therefore?
Maybe it's a bracha. I'm taking solve the machlokas.
Very close. Oitzer atfilos. Achidish. He says because throughout the week, not just on Friday, everybody's busy and some people may curse their kids. That's his language. So now it's time of Simcha. Everybody's relaxed. Shabbos, you can't do anything. You can't remind. You have to sit and enjoy. Be with your kids. They made it now. The brachos you give them hopefully rectify and nullify the klalos you may have given your children throughout the week. David Povalsky was a Rosh Yeshiva of Ponovich. He once met the Michtav Rabbi Eliyahu Dessler. And Rabbi Eliyahu Dessler always said that the brisker Rav, when he met people, he would give them a bracha, but without a handshake. And Rav Dessler said, I have a raya against the brisker Rav. Why? Because you see here that Yaakov Avinu was very careful to put his hands on the head of the person who he says he gives a bracha to, because obviously you see there's an inyan that the bracha should go through the hand. And more than that, Birkas Koyanim, what is it called? Nesias Kapayim. So much so that a Kohen that can't lift his hands is disqualified. He can't give a bracha. You see that the bracha has to go, for whatever reason, through the hands of the person who gives the bracha. So this is what Rabbi Eliyahu Dessler is saying to David Povalsky. And David Povalsky says to him, not sure. Could be there's a different reason why Yaakov Avinu was forced to use his hands. Because in Medrash Tanchuma it says that seeing the person that you give a bracha, that tzaddik sees the person whom he is about to bless, that transfers the bracha. But a few psukim before this, the Torah says Yaakov Avinu can't see. So maybe he has to transfer the bracha somehow. He can't use his eyes as normally a tzaddik would. And therefore he is forced in this case to put his hands on the person who is blessed. So there's a whole big discussion in the poskim. How can you bichlal say this bracha when you imitate the kohen? It says Yivarecha Hashem v'shmerecha, and that's a bracha lichoira that belongs to the kohenim. And the Biur Halacha and Siman Kuf Kaf Ches wonders about minhag ha'olam. It's as if you're transgressing an essay. The Torah commanded the kohenim to say this, and when you say this, you're stealing their bracha. You're oiver be'eseh. That's what the Biur Halacha wants to say. So he wants to be melamed zchus that maybe they hold, like the Bach, that only if you do the action of the Kohanim with a hand, then you're imitating them and you're stealing their essay. But as long as you don't do it, you're fine. And therefore, there's many people who give the bracha to the children, but without placing their hands on their heads. Therefore, the God Mivila and his Talmidim were medakdek to give the bracha, but without putting the hands. The Yavitz says, and the Siddur Yavitz writes that the minhag is to put two hands. He quotes his father, the Chacham Tzri, who did it as well. And that's the minhag of the Olam, is to be makel. But some people, because of this, only put one hand and not two hands, not to mamish completely be like the Kohanim. So Nahara Upashte Udeavid Kemar Avid Udeavid Kemar Avid. Each one has his own minhag, and they all come from a very chashuva and holy place. But the most important thing is when you do give that bracha, is to do it with love, just like the Kohanim do. That you're allowed to steal from the Kohanim be'ahava. I remember once I was walking with my Rebbe Victor Nebenzahl Shlita. I was walking from the shul back to his house. It's a 2-minute walk. But I think it took us about 20 minutes. Because every single second, somebody has stopped us and asked his bracha. Young and old, men and women, everybody, can I get a bracha? Can I get a bracha? So obviously he gave him brachas. Then there was 1 second that nobody came to us. So he looks at me and says, you should know. People look into what business I should go into. The best business to be in is to give brachos to Klal Yisrael. Why? Because the Gemara, Soita Lamed Ches Amud Beis says, HaMevarech Misbarech. You give a bracha, you yourself a blessing. He says, I love this. I'm giving brachos Lemaisa, I'm blessing myself. It's the best business to be in. Somebody want to ask something? You want to ask something? Yaakov Avinu is about to die. After one dies, you say Kaddish. The riddle of the week, who was the first person ever to say Kaddish? When was Kaddish instituted? It's not Anshe Knesset Agdola, so that's much after the Torah. And let's go back to the Torah. So it's much before Anshe, before this was instituted. And yet, who was the first person to ever say Kaddish?
I'm assuming it's
Yosef. Before him. Avraham Avinu. Where did you see him saying Kaddish? Vayispod l'Sarah. He eulogized her. Where's the Kaddish? He eulogized her. He talked about how great she was. If you have a source to say that he also said Kaddish, gewaldig. By the way, there were 10 Jewish people there that said Amen. I don't know. I wasn't in that funeral. Big Chiddush. The first Kaddish was not a Kaddish Yasum after one's demise. It was actually a person just before he himself is about to die. His name is Yaakov Avinu. The pasuk says, Yaakov called all his kids. Hey, Asfu, come close to me. The Targum Yerushalmi, not Targum Yonasan, Targum Yerushalmi under this pasuk brings, Yaakov Avinu wanted to reveal the ketz, the end, when he stalka mimeno Ashrina. The Shina suddenly removed him and he wasn't able to do it. So he said, children, what happened? Is everything okay? Maybe there's something wrong with you guys and that's why this is happening to me. And they said, no. Shema Yisrael. Listen, Father, Yisrael, Yaakov. Hashem Elokeinu, Hashem Echad. We're with you. We're with the Kodesh Baruch Hu. Yaakov was so happy. And then he said, Yehei Shmei Rabba Mevorach Le'almei Olmein. That's the language of Targum Yerushalmi. It comes out that he's the first one to say Kaddish. At least half a Kaddish, a quarter of a Kaddish. Respond to a Kaddish.
He said the Targum Yerushalmi is in Aramaic. He said Baruch Shem in Hebrew, but the Yerushalmi
and you say Kaddish in Hebrew?
No, but he didn't say Yehei Shmei. He said Baruch Shem.
Who told you? Were you there?
We say Shema Yisrael to say Baruch Shem because he said that.
But we say exactly what he said. We imitate him when we say Yehei Shmei Rabba Mevorach. The Targum Yerushalmi says, and this is what he said.
Because the Targum Yerushalmi is in Aramaic.
Maybe. It's also not a full Kaddish. You just responded like we respond in Kaddish. But I wanted to bring this Chiddush of Targum Yerushalmi, and therefore. You know what? You did so well in the previous riddle. Let's go from Kaddish a little later to get an Aliyah in the Torah. Today we had an Aliyah in the Torah, right? So tomorrow is going to be Kriyas Torah. Can it be? There are 100 Yisraelim in the shul, and yet the Kohen will get Shlishi. Everybody's healthy. Everybody knows how to say the brachos. There's no vows or anything no vows. Everybody's healthy. No pikuach nefesh. And yet we'll call the Kohen to say a Shlishi, even though there's 100 other Yisraelim in the shul. Can it be? First of all, can it be? Yes. Very good. 2 points. Now, if you don't mind, just share the details.
If the Kohen enters after they've done the first two,
we can't call him. Moshe Zkenim al Torah and Parshas Chukas brings a remez. How do you know Kohen, Levi, Yisrael? This is not from the Torah. It's Gittin Lamed Vav, I think, or Lamed Hey. Chazal instituted Mitshum Darkei Shalom, so people shouldn't come to fight. But Leika Midi de Lor Mize Bewaisa, everything is alluded to in the Torah. The Moshe Zkenim al Torah, Bali Atosis, they say, the pasuk in Parshas Chukas, just before Sheni, pasuk says, V'nasan alav Maim Chaim El Keli. What's Maim? Maim is always alluding to Torah. Shneimah, Hoi called Sameh Lechul Maim. In Maim El Torah, in Tanis Daf Zayin, Baba Kama Yud Zayin, Baba Kama Pei Beis, Maim is always Torah. What's Chaim? Torah. Shneimah, Etz Chaim in Machazikim Ba. So when HaKadosh Baruch Hu pours Maim Chaim, Torah, to us, He gives it into a Kli. What's Kli? Kohen, Levi, Yisrael, Kaf Lamed Yud. You see, HaKadosh Baruch Hu already alludes to it, that first the Kohen reads, then Levi, then Yisrael. But back to my question. Levi is supposed to be, Yisrael is supposed to be the Shlishi, and yet, can it be that the Kohen is the third one?
If there's too many brisim, too many chiluvim to get an aliyah.
And therefore, what's going to happen? So he wasn't able to get the first aliyah?
There's another Kohen got the first aliyah.
HaKohen got aliyah Rishoina. Levi got aliyah Shniya. There's 15 brisim in town. We're not going to allow the Kohen, or even if he didn't get the first aliyah, to go third. Shlishi is reserved for the Yisrael. And back to my question, in fact, the Kohen got the first aliyah. Levi got the second one. Shlishi, Yamod, a Kohen. Can it be?
Maybe the Kohen was the Rav of the shul, and he spends a long time doing his Shemon, having his Shemon Esrei, So he was not available. He could not call him over the person.
But how can you call a Kohen for Shlishi?
Normally,
He's the Rav of town. How can you call a Kohen for Shlishi? Even if the Shmones is 45 minutes long. Big Chiddush. And the answer is, this morning, Asara B'Tevis. Whenever there's a Tanis Sibu, we read, Vayechal Moshe. What's the Shlishi? Yud Gimel Midois. Everybody wants to have Yud Gimel Midois. Says the Magen Avraham. In Simen Kuf Lam Medhei, Seif Kotten Tetzvav, the Sha'ar HaTziyun brings him, he quotes the Magen Avraham in Seif Kotten Chaftes, that there are some places that they instituted in order to avoid fighting, because everybody wants Shlishi. Everybody wants the Yud Gimel Midois. So they instituted that the Chacham or the Kohen will get the Shlishi. It works very well if the Kohen also happens to be the Chacham. That really works well. But they instituted this, that they give it to the Chacham Ha'ir. They give it to the chief rabbi. Chacham Ha'ir, nobody's going to come to fight with him. Well, we honor the rabbi. They made it, that could be the answer. Very shaykh for today, or for others, previous Tanis Sibur. We're not going to have any more in Mitzvah Hashem because Mashiach is coming. What's the connection to the Parsha? It's a connection to Inyana D'Yoyma, Asara B'Tevis. Anything to do with Parsha Vayechi? Yes. Because in this pasuk that we mentioned, when Yaakov Avinu calls all his kids, says, come, gather. He asks for. The Bereshis Rabbah, the Medrash says in Tzadiches, Ois Beis, that Yaakov Avinu, Siva, Oisam, Al HaMachloikes. What he was saying, He asked for, be together and stay together. Be united. Stay away from Machloikes. So this whole minhag was instituted because people fought. I want this. No, I want this. I should get the Shlishi. You got it last time. I want it. Machloikes. We want to avoid Machloikes. How badly do we want to avoid Machloikes? Listen to a language of Medrash HaGadol on this pasuk. Rabbi Eliezer ben Yaakov Omer. Bais sheyesh bo Machloikes. A house that has a Machloikes. Soifo lecharev. This house will be destroyed. Machlokes babais. If there's Machlokes in the house, zima babais. Chalila can bring immorality. Ir sheyesh bo Machlokes. A town where there's Machlokes. Soifa. The end will be sheyeh ba shfichus damim vesoifa liispazer. People will kill each other, and people will split town. Bais hakneses. You have a shul. Sheyesh bo Machlokes. Soifa lehishtoimim. It will be desolate. Nobody is going to be there. Machlokes badin. If there's machlokes bedin, churban oilam. Godel hu hashalom usnua hamachlokes, and that's why Yaakov Avinu commanded his children, make sure you're always beshalom, be'achva, be'yididus, be'reus, be'achdus, and chas v'shalom nad machlokes. Yaakov Avinu gives a bracha to Shimon Levi. Aru rapam ki az, vevasam ki kashasa, and therefore, achal kem be'Yaakov, ve'afitzem be'Yisrael. Rashi brings to the Medrash that basically he was saying, from now on, you're going to be teachers. You're going to have to be all over the country, and you're going to be the teachers. What's the connection between the fact that you're so angry, so you're going to have to be teachers? Comes Rabbi Yehuda Chassid. Rabbi Yehuda Chassid wrote many Sfarim, not just Sefer Chassidim that we all know. He also wrote a Sefer, not so known, called Sefer HaGimatriot. And he has remarkable Chidushim there. And he says, Yaakov Avinu, but don't you know, it says, Lo kapdan melamed. You're calling the wrong person for this job. You want Shimon Levi who get angry so quickly? They should be the melamdim? Yes, because that's going to be the tshuvas hamishkal. You know that you can't get angry at your talmidim. Shimon Levi know that. They're going to have to conquer their anger, and therefore that for them is a rectification for their anger, and therefore they, dafka, will be the teachers in Am Yisrael. Zevulon lechof yamim yishkoin. He will dwell on the coast of the seas. Superfluous 2 letters, asks the Ben Ish Chai. Lechof yamim, how many oceans? Why can't you say lechof yam? Yishkon, what's yamim? Why plural? Seas? Lechof yam, yishkon. Says the Ben Ish Chai, because there's 2 different types of oceans. There's the physical one. That's where Zevulon goes to work. He's a merchant. But there's another water. What is that? Yam Talmud. And since Zevulon supports Yissachar's Torah, he is actually found in both seas. He's in the sea of Talmud, and he is in the physical sea. That's the advantage of Zevulon. So if a person is supporting of Yissachar's Torah, the Masechtas that he never learned. When he goes upstairs after 120, he will find that he knows Zvachim, and he knows Chulin, and he knows Bechoires, and he knows Erchin, and all the Maseches that he never came to, even if he never learned Megillah and Shabbos and whatever it is, they will be registered on his name as well. So Yissachar and Zevulon support each other. Yissachar learns, he shares his Torah. Zevulon supports Yissachar and shares his money. But is this appropriate to have a Yissachar-Zevulon agreement? It seems as if Yissachar is learning only to be supported by Zevulon. Is it appropriate for Yissachar to agree to this arrangement? Or is something that it works, but we should recommend to the Yissachar, stay away?
Lo lishma, lo lishma.
Who says? Mitoch shelo lishma, bal lishma, you're starting to learn. We're hoping that you're going to learn, but here it's a constant lo lishma. Every single month you're getting the paycheck, and that's the lo lishma that makes sure you're going to stay in the lo lishma realm.
No, but I mean, if you get to a point where you start enjoying the learning so much that you feel you can continue it anyhow.
If he loved it so much, why does he need his Zevulon to support him? HaKadosh Baruch Hu will support him. What's wrong with his bitachon? So he should stop after a few months when he's really into it and he loves the learning. It looks like, from the outside at least, as if Yissachar is only learning to be supported by Zevulon. Should we recommend to Yissachars to be supported by their Zvulons? Is it a good idea, this arrangement? It works. We know it works. But is it a good idea?
Well, if he's not supported, he may not be able to learn. Then he can't go on.
Reb Chaim Volozhin said, first of all, if you don't want to do this agreement, it shows as if you're stingy. You don't want to give a part of your Torah to Zevulon. Eino tzara be'achiv. Why not give part of your Torah to your brother? And more than that, if he is not going to be supported, ultimately he will have to leave the yeshiva. He will have to start working. Half a day, a full day, I don't know what. And what does HaKadosh Baruch Hu really want? HaKadosh Baruch Hu wants him out of the yeshiva. HaKadosh Baruch Hu wants it to be more Torah in the world. So by agreeing to do this agreement, he is staying in the yeshiva. He gives HaKadosh Baruch Hu's nachas. He is able to give part of his Torah to Zevulun. And Zevulun now has a part in Torah that otherwise he wouldn't have. So HaKadosh Baruch Hu doesn't want that. Of course HaKadosh Baruch Hu wants it. So you have a lot of nachas that you give to HaKadosh Baruch Hu. There's a machlokes, when one does this agreement, does he actually lose 50% of his reward? He actually give 50% of your Torah and the Torah reward to Zevulun who supports you, or not? Big machlokes. So somebody once came to the Chazon Ish, and he said, listen, life is very difficult. Very difficult. I have a lot of children. Very difficult. But there is a Zevulun that wants to support me. Should I do it or not? And according to the side that says that you actually lose 50% of the reward, maybe it's not kedai. It's kedai for me to continue living in poverty, but then in the next world, my reward will be immense. And will be complete. Why should I lose half of my Torah? According to this side that says you do lose half. The Chazon Ish told him, for learning Torah, you need Mesirus Nefesh. Your Mesirus Nefesh is to give up half of the world to come. But what do you think HaKadosh Baruch Hu is going to punish you because you're willing to do Mesirus Nefesh and giving half of your reward? HaKadosh Baruch Hu will compensate you Mistama double. Maybe 4 times as much. So mainly you're not losing. You're losing because technically speaking, according to that side, you're giving half of your Torah. But you're doing Mesirus Nefesh. You know what HaKadosh Baruch Hu pays for Mesirus Nefesh for Torah? Maybe you're not going to lose. Since we mentioned Reb Chaim Volozhin, because he said the previous answer, in Yeshiva Volozhin, the secretary would always open up the private letters of the guys in the yeshiva. They were fighting the Enlightenment movement back then. And they were afraid, who knows who's sending, what they're sending. They wanted to protect the kids. The guys didn't like it. Some people were married as well. They really didn't like it. One day, the secretary comes to one of the guys, an avrech, sitting there. His wife is somewhere, I don't know where, different country. And he says, you get a mazel tov, mazel tov, mazel tov. He says, mazel tov? Why mazel tov to me? Your wife, she gave birth. You have a baby boy. And this guy looks at him and he says, but which wife? The first or the second? Chaya or Rachel? And the secretary looks at him and says, what? Don't you know you're not allowed to marry more than one wife? And the guy says, I thought Cherem D'Rabbeinu Gershom also applies on not opening private letters. Does this agreement, Yissachar and Zevulun, help in other mitzvahs as well? Or is it limited to Talmud Torah? Talmud Torah we know it works. But I want to do an agreement with a Zevulun Yissachar, will share our mitzvahs. Everything, not just limited to Torah. There's another 612 other mitzvahs. Does it work for other mitzvahs as well? No. Why not?
How can you share?
How can you share the reward for Torah?
Well, that's a spiritual thing. But like
And the mitzvah is not spiritual?
putting on tefillin.
Shaking lulav. Do you understand what you're doing? It gives the Kodesh Baruch Hu nachas. Talmud Torah also gives the Kodesh Baruch Hu nachas. So you can share the reward for that, but you can't share the reward for shaking the lulav. Why not?
Because it's like a physical act done by you alone, whereas when you're learning,
When you're learning by yourself,
when you learn like the
you don't have a chavrusa. Rabbi Yosef, 102 years, learning by himself. Spiritual thing done by yourself. What's the difference? There's a mitzvah called Avas Hashem. Emunas Hashem is not physical. What's the difference?
the words rise up or something like that and spreads out. It has some kind of.
And the emunah of Hashem can't lift, can't move up. It can't ascend to Kodesh Baruch Hu. Rabbeinu Achido, Sefer Shem HaGdolim, brings that he saw handwriting of Reb Chaim Vital that says, I found a letter from Reb Yehuda, the son of the Rosh. So we're going back to the Rishonim, who says the following. Reb Yechiel, who was the father of the Rosh, in other words, Reb Yehuda is his grandson, had an agreement with his best friend. His best friend, whose name was Reb Shlomo Cohen, and he had an agreement with him. They made a contract that they will share all their mitzvahs and good deeds. When Reb Yechiel died, the father of the Rosh dies, the grandfather of Reb Yehuda, the son of the Rosh. He died. So they schlepped the coffin and they got to the cemetery, and the Chidah says there was a minhag by Ashkenaz at that point, that when you travel with the coffin, when you get to the cemetery, you actually open it to make sure that the deceased is actually lying there flat, and because of the travel, nothing moved and nothing broke, nothing. They opened it, and Rabbi Yechiel, who just passed away, started laughing. Rabbi Shlomo HaKohen comes close, that's his best buddy, and says, I'm just reminding my dear friend here, Rabbi Yechiel, who passed away, don't forget about our agreement. And Rabbi Yechiel is laughing. The Maharsham writes that you cannot share your mitzvahs. It doesn't work, only for Talmud Torah. And he says that Rabbi Shlomo Kluger told him that that's the reason Rabbi Yechiel was laughing. Because now that he's dead, he understands it doesn't work. This agreement that we signed on is meaningless. Mele, that's why he was laughing. It only works, Yissachar Zevulon to Talmud Torah. It does not work in other areas as well. Since we spoke about the eternal reward, Yissachar, and you kept mentioning Yissachar is really written with two sins because it's Yesh Sachar. That indicates to his share to the world to come. So we toil and we are really busy and we're worried about our share in the world to come. But why is this so? After all, Sanhedrin Daf Tzadi Amud Aleph, the Mishnah says, Kol Yisrael yesh lahem chelek l'olam haba. Kol Yisrael yesh lahem chelek l'olam haba. So what are you worried about? Pressure. What's going to be with my share in the world to come? Kol Yisrael yesh lahem chelek l'olam haba. The Gemara, the Mishnah brings a raya. Pasuk in Ishaya, Perek Samech, Pasuk Chaf Aleph. Ve'amech kulam tzadikim. Kulam tzadikim. Le'olam yeshu eretz. Netzer mata'ai, ma'isei yodai le'yispaya. So you have a share in the world to come, so what are you worried about? There's a bunch of answers. First of all, everybody loves to quote this Mishnah, but it's only the first part of the Mishnah. The Mishnah continues. Ve'elu she'en lahem chelek la'olam haba. There's also a list of those who don't get to go to the world to come. So we want to make sure that we are. The first part of the Mishnah was we are on the list of those who do. But it's true that we all have a share in the world to come. Kol Yisrael yesh lahem chelek. You have a share. It's like buying shares. You buy a stock. You believe it's going to move up. But you're not happy with its current value. Why did you buy it? Because you're hoping it's going to move up. The way for it to move up in a share is just to hope that the company knows what it's doing, it's going to do good business. But the way for us to make sure that our share rises in value is to invest and to do the right thing. So we have a share in the world to come, but we have to make sure that share increases in size. The Chofetz Chaim says it's true. Kol Yisrael yesh lahem chelek l'olam haba. But who says they're going to get it? Mashal lema'ad avadoybe. A person's grandmother, great aunt, whoever it is, died in a very foreign land, far away country. They left him a gigantic inheritance. But in order to obtain it, you have to travel to that country. And you have to sign a lot of documents. And there's a lot of bureaucracy involved.
Only if you're going to do that, you're going to take that share, which is yours. But if you're not going to participate in this, it's not coming to you. So Kol Yisrael yesh lahem chelek, but it's up to you to make sure that you actually get that chelek, and that is done only through mitzvahs and ma'asim tovim. Chelek, Kol Yisrael yesh lahem chelek. Chelek, says the Chafetz Chaim, is like a chelka. Chelka is a piece of land. If you don't plant, and you don't water, and you don't do all the work necessary, nothing is going to grow here. You have a chelek, but you want to make sure that it continuously grows. That's why it's called a chelek, like a chelka. You have a piece of karka, but you want to make sure things grow, so you have to invest. That's why in the pasuk that the Mishnah brings as a raya, it says netzer mata'ai. Mata'ai is like an orchard. You have to constantly be involved in working the orchard in order to have great fruits that will come out of it. And the Chafetz Chaim also says, there's different language in Chazal. A person has a chelek lo olam haba. On the other hand, Chazal say, he's a bein olam haba. What's the difference between the two? You have a chelek. Well, what type of chelek? Sometimes the poor person comes to the wedding. They give him a chelek. They give him a little portion. It's not what the rich mechubadik person who came to the wedding he gets. He gets a chelek. Maybe he's going to be standing in the mezzanine. But we want to be a ben olam haba. To your son, you give the best portion, the biggest size. Maybe we have to make sure that we are considered ben olam haba and not just a chelek olam haba. And some people do have a chelek olam haba, but they wasted ba'olam hazeh. So you want to make sure that you keep the entire chelek that you have la'olam haba and don't waste it chalila ba'olam hazeh. So we spoke about Zevulon that supports Torah and his maila. There's a few other things related. Does the Zevulon really get only 50%? We spoke till now about Yissachar's side, but what about Zevulon? Does he get 50% or he gets 100%? The Or HaChaim HaKodesh, the Chidah, the Bnei Yissachar, and the Hagdama of the Hafla to Maseret Ksubis, they all say, somehow, HaKadosh Baruch Hu is able to take $1, to split it in two, and yet each one gets $1. How? HaKadosh Baruch Hu can do that. We can't. You take $1, you break it in two, you have 50% here and 50%. Somehow HaKadosh Baruch Hu gives $1, and it stays $1 to the two people. It's the same thing with a husband and wife. She supports his Torah and she sends him to learn. She gets fully rewarded, even though she never sat and learned. But she has a chelek in his Torah. But she doesn't get 50%. She gets 100%. While her husband gets 100% as well. So somehow HaKadosh Baruch Hu can take $1 and break it into two, and each one gets 100. The Chidah asks a question. What if the Zevulon supports a Yissachar that learns lo lishma? He learns. He's enjoying all the money that Zevulon gives him, but he's not learning lishma. Will the Zevulon be rewarded as if the Yissachar sat and learned lishma, or he gets paid as a Yissachar that was learning, not lishma? The Yissachar is definitely going to be rewarded only as a person who learned lo lishma. But what about the Zevulon? Says the Chidah in Pnei David, the Zevulon will be rewarded exactly like a person who spent money on a Yissachar that learns lishma. And the Chassam Sofer writes, it's the greatest investment in the world. How exactly is the Zevulon supposed to know that Yissachar is learning not lishma? He can go into his heart and check what's going on there? He can't. So Mimele, since he is forced to continue paying to the Yissachar thinking he's learning lishma, HaKadosh Baruch Hu is not going to punish him, and he rewards him exactly as if he was supporting a person who's learning lishma. So you can't lose. Shalchus Beis Shlomo says the same thing. So we have three Gedolei Olam, the Chidah, Chassam Sofer, and Shalchus Beis Shlomo. Yevamos Tzadi Zayin Amud Aleph, the Gemara says, Kol Talmid Chochem. If you say you said Dvar Torah in the name of a Talmid Chochem who's no longer here, what happens to the lips of that Talmid Chochem? Somehow the lips are moving. The Zevulon that supports the Yissachar died. And now I'm saying a Dvar Torah in the name of the Yissachar. Yissachar's lips are going to be moving in the grave. When Zevulon dies, will his lips also move in the grave? Says the Chidah, yes. It's unbelievable. The Hafla writes this in the Akdama to Ksubis. The Chafetz Chaim writes this. The Griz doesn't agree, but you have a strong coalition. By the way, it's very important to know what that really means. What does that mean? Sfaisav, lips are moving in the grave. How does that work? Comes the Sefer Hasidim in Simin Reish Chaf Dalet, and he says, Sfaisav doivos bakever means that up there, wherever that tzaddik is, he's actually going to daven for the person that said Advar Torah in his name, and he's going to be a good advocate on his behalf. So it's very, very kedai to learn Torah of great tzaddikim, because now they're standing there and davening for you. You're forcing that tzaddik to daven for you and to be a good advocate on your behalf.
Here we asked if the Zevulon gets schar for this Yissachar's Einam Shema. Does the wife get schar for the husband's Einam Shema?
If she supports him in his learning and she pushes him to go learn, what can she do? There's no way for me to find out how the other person is learning. So you're in your be'oiness and you're doing the right thing. There's no difference between her and the Zevulon. Is Zevulon saved from Yissachar? When one learns Torah, he is saved from Yissachar. Zevulon is not learning. He is supporting Yissachar, who's learning. Is he also protected from Yissachar? Says the Chidah and Pnei David, yes. Mamish unbelievable miles to the Zevulon who supports Torah.
You said that if the person in the grave gets credit, what about if you're saying for a contemporary, the person's living?
So then anyways, nobody's lips are moving in the grave. It's not tzachar, you just happen to bring Geula Lo'ilam.
What is it?
Pirkei Avos Perek Vav Mishnah Vav, 3 other places in Shas, in Nida, and in Bechoros, in Megillat Ezvav, the Gemara says, Kol ha'omer davar b'shem omroi, mevi Geula Lo'ilam. If you say a Dvar Torah in the name of whom you heard it from, you bring Geula to the world. It's not a reward, it's Geula to the entire world. So Geula is going to come, but he's rewarded. But this is special for a person who says Dvar Torah in the name of a person who died. The lips of the person who died move in the grave as if, according to Rabbi Chosid and Sefer Chasidim, they don't actually move. They move up there. In other words, he davens for you and he's a good advocate on your behalf. Riddle. What's the connection between Yaakov Avinu's brachos here in this parsha and sneezing? Does the Torah quote anyone sneezing here while he gave the brachos? It took him a long time, 12 tribes. Anybody sneezing there? Oh! Shulchan Aruch Achaim, Simin Reish Lamed, Magen Avraham, Seif Kotan Vav, Mishnah Berurah quotes him in Seif Kotan Zayin. When one sneezes, we normally respond with, language of the Gemara, Asuta, Gesundheit, bless you, Levriyut, whatever language it is. The person who hears it normally responds with, thank you. That's not what he's supposed to say. The Magen Avraham says you're supposed to say Baruch Ti. You just gave me a bracha, should live and be well, healthy, and therefore I'm blessing you as well. You should be blessed as well. And right after you say that, you should say Lishuascha Kivisi Hashem. Why? Because you want to do the segula found in Baba Kama Tzadi Beis Amud Aleph, Kol HaMispaler Al Chaveiro, Vehu Tzarich Lo Yisro Davar, Hu Na'an Atchilam. I just gave you a bracha. I said Baruch Ti. So I want to benefit from that as well. And I say, what about me? Don't forget about me. Lishuascha Kivisi Hashem. Lishuascha Kivisi Hashem is part of the bracha of Yaakov to the Shvatim, to Shevet Dan, and that is a connection to sneezing. Yosef says to the brothers, Vayomer Elem Yosef, Al tirau, ki hasachas Eloikim anoichi, perek nun pasuk yud tes. Is that what he said? Did I fool you a little? Just a little. Vayomer Elem Yosef, Al tirau. Don't be afraid. Ki hasachas Eloikim anoichi. Is that what he said? Shlai mikavecha togum, 3 hours of Shabbos already. Is that what you said? Asaras Eloikim ani. He doesn't say anoichi. He should have learned from his father. What does Yaakov Avinu say to Rachel when she says, Hamalu banim, ve'imayin mesa anoichin? And what does he respond? Hasachas Eloikim anoichi. Yaakov Avinu said anoichi. So how come Yosef doesn't say in the same language that Yaakov Avinu said? Why is there a difference? Why does Yosef say Tachat Elokim ani, while Yaakov, his father, said Tachat Elokim anoichi? Comes Rabbeinu Yoel. Rabbeinu Yoel is one of the Rishonim, and he says, how old was Yaakov Avinu when he said to Rachel Tachat Elokim anoichi? He was 86. How long is he going to live? 147. 147 minus 86. It's not so early. 147 minus 86. 61. The year after Yaakov said this to Rachel, Yosef was born. So Yaakov Avinu is 87 years old. Yosef now is standing 1 year after Yaakov Avinu's death, and he says, Hatachas Eloikim ani. Ani is Gimatria 61, because now it's 61 years from then. In other words, Yosef saying, by the way, I am 61 years old. Hatachat Elokim, the person who's 61, Ani, Aleph, Nun, Yud, is 61. Yosef is just telling us how old he is, because he is now 61 years old. Yosef is dying at the end of the parasha. Why did he have to die before the brothers? What did he do wrong? Why did he have to go first before all the brothers? It's the Gemara. But if it was so simple, I wouldn't bring it. Not a Chiddush. 3 great Chiddushim. Midrashim. Bereishis Rabbah. Parasha Kuf Ois Gimel. Machloikes Rebbe and Rabbanon. Rebbe said, because he embalmed his father Yaakov. What's wrong with that? HaKadosh Baruch Hu looks at Yosef and says, Yosef, what's wrong with you? Omar le HaKadosh Baruch Hu, Lo hayiti yachol lishmor et tzadikai. Don't you think I can watch over my tzadikim? You have to embalm him. You don't trust me? Didn't I say a pasuk in Yishaya, Perek Mem Aleph, pasuk Yudalad? Al tiri tolas Yaakov. We normally understand it to be HaKadosh Baruch Hu is talking to Yaakov. But the Medrash says, no, HaKadosh Baruch Hu was talking to the worms that normally come to eat the body up. Al tiri tolas es Yaakov. Stay away from Yaakov. So you think you have to do it? I'm not strong enough to protect my tzaddikim, and because of that, he shortened his life. Rabbanan say, no, they don't agree. Because Yosef didn't do it because he felt like doing it. Because his father commanded him. Because the passage says that they did exactly as he wished. That means he commanded them to do that. So according to Rabbanan, what was the problem? Why did he die early? Because Yosef heard close to 5 times, that's the language of the Medrash, his brother Yehuda says, Avdecha Avi, the servant, my father, who happens to be your father as well, your servant. He hears a person, his brother, calling his father a servant, and he is silent. What does it say close to 5 times? Because 4 times he heard Yehuda. And the 5th time they all said together. So that's why it's close to 5 times. So 5 times you hear your father being called a servant and you don't protest. Because of that he shortened his life. Medrash Sechel Tov, not less of a Chiddush, says, Lama mes Yosef kodem lechol echav. Why did he die first? Because if his brothers would die before him, there's a chashash. Maybe Yosef would say, payback. It's because they sold me. The whole thing happened because of them. That's why HaKadosh Baruch Hu kept me around. Well, he killed all the others. So Yosef Chalila shouldn't come to say that. HaKadosh Baruch Hu took him first. The Or HaChaim HaKadosh asks in our parasha, what happened to the latter generations, to our generations, as opposed to the previous generations? People used to live, Adam Arishon, how long did they live for? 930 years. Mesushelach? 969 years. People used to live for 900 years. And 800. And 700. And he says today, Mafli Lasos. It's a wonder if somebody reaches the age of 100. What happened? What went wrong? Says the Or HaChaim HaKadosh, a mashal. There was a king who gave some of his servants diamonds and precious stones to polish. And he gave one guy 300,000 of them. And the other he gave 350,000 of them. And he said the one who's going to do a really good job is going to get to keep them. And he waited and waited and waited. And you have 1 day to polish 1 stone. When they concluded, the days are over. So he called them and says, let's see what you did. And they all come back. And not only did they not improve the stones, they actually wrecked them. They made them dirty. They broke some of them. Terrible job. The king was so upset, he killed all of them. And he said to their children, look what I did to your parents. Make sure you don't do that. And you know what? I'm going to make it easier for you. When you give a person 300,000 diamonds, which is 300,000 days, because it's a diamond per day, it's like you give him 900 years. 350,000, 952 years to live. So you know what? I'm only going to give you 30,000. 35,000, which alludes to a much shorter life. 30,000 days divided by 365. You're talking about 70, 80, 90, 100 years. That's the most you're going to live. There's more of a chance that you're going to treat this seriously, because throughout your life you're going to remember my command. If you live for 800 years and you have to remember what I commanded you 800 years ago when you left your mother's womb, The more Nida Daf Lamed. Mashbi'in oto shvua. Make a person take a shvua. Be a tzaddik and not a rasha, but you have to remember it for 700 years. So HaKadosh Baruch Hu says, you know what? Make it easier for you. You're going to still remember what happened to your parents. You're going to remember the one who commanded you, and it's going to be much easier for you. And that's why our life is shortened, to make it easier for us. It's a toiva that HaKadosh Baruch Hu did with us. That's the language of the Shulchan Aruch. We learn from here that every day that we do have in this world is a gem. It's a precious stone. It's a pearl. It's a diamond, and we should treat it as such to make sure they don't go to waste. To make sure HaKadosh Baruch Hu has tremendous nachas de kedusha from us. אחינו כל בית ישראל נשואים בצר ובשביה. האם דימן בים ובין ביבשה. עמוקם ירחם עליהם ויוצאים מצר ולבח ומפל אלוהים ומשיר בוד לגאולה אשתו בעגולו בזמן קורי ואינו ימר אמן.
You've just experienced another Torah class brought to you by TorahAnytime.com.